reporters, pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Hapanwo TV. And welcome to this, the latest installment in my series of videos entitled UFO Disclosure 2015. This is one called The Eve of the Roswell Slides. I can't remember if it's my fifth or my sixth or seventh. I think it's my sixth video I've done in this series. I've been doing them since New Year, or just before New Year. And this, of course, is a very important one because the big day is almost upon us. That much anticipated day that I've been talking about for a long, long time. The day when the Roswell slides will be revealed. Now, what does that mean? We shall discuss. Anyway, now this picture you can see before me is actually a picture of my little shelf here, and on it you see a bottle of whiskey, and as you can see there's a little note attached to the top of it. The bottle is actually sealed, and there's that note on the seal. Now, the button, you can't actually read what's on there, I think, by looking at this picture, but it actually says to be opened on May the 5th when the Roswell slides are revealed, as a chaser to the Perry waiting for disclosure day. Yeah, and I'm sure you're familiar with my disclosure champagne. See the link in the description box to previous videos where I talk about that. But I do have a bottle of Perry, which is it's actually Charlemagne Perry. It's not real champagne, but I plan to open that on disclosure day, and I've got this bottle of whiskey which I bought over 2 months ago now. I've not touched it. It's been there ever since on that shelf, not even moved it. And as you can see by that letter, which you can't read, but if you, Dave Rudiak would be able to read it, but you can't, of course. If you get hold of Dave Rudiak, he'll decipher it for you, but I promise you that is what it says. I think there's a little joke in that note, which is kind of saying, like, the day of the Roswell slides revelation will be the day of disclosure. Will it or will it not? I'm not sure. Maybe I'm being a bit too hasty there. Maybe I'm just having a laugh. But basically, that's there, which I'm going to celebrate. I'm going to celebrate by drinking that, or drinking some of it, probably some of it, when I'm watching those Roswell slides being revealed. Now, you may be a bit disturbed by all this. You may think I'm a bit of an alcoholic with all this constant reference to intoxicating drinks. I'm not actually. I think by my standards, by hospital portering standards, I'm virtually a teetotaler. The thing is, it is the traditional portering thing to do. You know, alcohol does play a big part of our culture, and there's no getting away from that. So, obviously, I will celebrate with a drink. I don't drink to excess. In fact, I haven't had a drink for a few days now. I don't do it regularly. It's just on special occasions I do like to do things as they would in the lodge. And, of course, as I've explained in past videos, you know, it could be a bit of a traumatic experience as well as a happy experience to undergo the pangs of disclosure. So therefore, I'd like to face it with a bit of Dutch courage. All right, just to recap, I mean, you may be surprised, and it is unusual when you think about it, that all this hope, all this thrill, is all centered around two very small photographic slides. Now, what happened was, this story goes back to 1988 because a lady called Hilda Ray died. She died in Midland, Texas, where she lived. She and her husband had lived there for most of their lives. He died in 1982. And what happened was a woman, a cleaning woman, was basically clearing out their house, taking out all the possessions that the family didn't want and chucking them, basically. Now, one of the things they found was in the attic or the garage, I'm not sure which, depends which story you read, a box was found containing slides, photographic slides. Now, it is known that Mr. and Mrs. Ray were keen photographers, and these photographs were amazing. Beautiful colour prints of very, very top quality, well exposed, expert photographs taken of famous peoples in some cases. There was one of General Eisenhower, who went on to become president later. Basically taken sometime between 1940 and 1950, most of these were taken. There was some celebrity events, which the Rays, they were obviously a well-connected couple. Bernard Ray was a geologist who worked in the oil industry. He was president of the American Petroleum Geologists Society. He knew a couple of important people. Hilda Ray also. If anything, she's even more well connected. She was a top lawyer, a very respected attorney at law, which would have meant she moved in some very, very strange circles indeed. She was a pilot, and also there's rumours that she was connected to the intelligence agencies. But that was early on in this saga. They took these photographs. There's photographs of Eisenhower, like I said. There's photographs of Bing Crosby, of a couple of other famous people such as Clark Gable. There's a whole series of photographs taken at the American Pro Golfing Tournament. A famous golfer there, Sammy Snade, as he was called. So these are interesting. She realised these were interesting historically, and could be worth something. And if the family didn't want them, she was going to damn well have them. So instead of chucking them in the skip, she took them home. But on closer examination of the box which they were in, she realised that there's a little envelope shoved inside the lining of the lid, and inside this envelope were 2 extra slides. Now these were very different. They showed something very different. They showed a picture of some strange humanoid creature in a glass case. It looked like a glass case. But there's somebody standing nearby. It looks like a woman is standing nearby. She didn't know what these were, but she sent them to her brother Adam Dew. He realised that they were something alien related because he was quite into that sort of thing. And he contacted Don Schmitt and Tom Carey, who I've talked about in the previous films. There's a little bit of a strange story about these slides, because apparently there was a very long time gap between each of these changings of hands. For instance, the lady, the cleaner, kept them for 10 years before showing them to her brother Adam. Adam then kept them for another 10 years before contacting Don and Tom. It's all a bit confusing, and again, as I've explained in separate films, and people like Kevin Randall have pointed out, we don't know much about the history of these slides, except that they were in a box of slides owned by the Rays. Mr. and Mrs. Ray may not have taken these photographs of these alien beings. They may not have known about them. All we know is that somebody, if maybe it wasn't Mr. and Mrs. Ray, had put those slides in the box with the others separately in a separate envelope. That's all we know. We don't know that there's a connection to the Roswell incident. Okay, that's another important point, which I'll go into later. The name Roswell slides is pretty much inevitable. They were going to be called that at some point, simply because of the cultural, the cultural force of the Roswell incident when it comes to ufology in general would have made that almost unavoidable. Tom and Don said they never called it that. They said this is what other people called it. So fair enough. So that's a strange story to beginning with. So since then, of course, they've been studied, they've been examined. Tom and Don have got other people involved, like Jaime Maussan and Carol Rosin, and they've done a lot of tests on them, checked them over, check to see if they're the real thing, sent them to several photographic experts. Are these real slides? And it turns out that, according to these Kodak experts, these are slides that were taken. They were on a film produced between 1939 and 1949, and the films had to have been taken and developed during that period. So the alien slides were taken and developed during the period of 1939 to 1949. Of course, that intersperses with the Roswell incident of 1947, July 1947, of course, a day that will live in infamy forever, or for me, if that's the opposite of infamy. Of course, there were other events similar, like the Cape Girardeau incident. There's rumours of other crash retrievals, like the Aztec incident and the Gateshead Grey, etc., etc. So it's hard to say for sure that it was anything to do with Roswell, but we know that Mr. and Mrs. Ray did spend a lot of time in the Roswell area because Bernard was a geologist who worked on the Permian Basin oil fields, which are part of that area. So it's quite possible he was in Roswell at the time that this all kicked off. Anyway, Tom and Don, they decided, well, shut up. Sorry about that. And so Tom and Don decided, well, as I explained in different videos, my previous films in the series, they did something that I wouldn't have done. They decided not to publish them straight away, but to have some massive, high publicity international launch ceremony, which is what they're doing. For reasons I've explained in the previous films, I don't think that's a wise move, but it's nice in a way because we get this big party atmosphere going. So maybe for selfish reasons, I'm quite glad that they did it. But of course, while these photos remain unpublished, it means that there's chances that they could be stolen by, a quote burglary, unquote, by the NSA, things like that. But anyway, it's all going swimmingly so far. There's a lot of tension being built up. It's possible that this additional publicity will help. If the photos do survive to the day when they're unveiled, then it could be it's a good thing, because it's a risk worth taking because of all the publicity being generated. But we shall see. And of course, I have been following this saga closely over the intervening months. There's a massive amount of speculation, and not least because Tom and Don have released a preview of the slides. I don't think they did it. As you can see here, you see a picture of the guys examining it. You see this. This is Adam Dew, basically in his laboratory, hunched over this photograph. Now, I think this might have been a mistake releasing this preview, because the preview has led to all manner of judgment and all manner of encouragement and discouragement from the UFO community. It might have been better if they just not released anything at all. However, these guys have been going around with it on their phones. I mean, you must have seen the videos. If you look at the videos, you must have seen these guys going around with. They go around. They showed it to Neil deGrasse Tyson, and Adam just simply flashes it on his phone. He's got a copy of the full quality image of the alien on his phone, and they've been going around Chicago on the streets with it on a clipboard, just showing it to people. I mean, they're carrying around this. I mean, funny thing is, there's been no leaks. Okay, there are no bootleg copies of this image anywhere, so the security has been tight. But I wonder, what's going on, because Adam Dew's carrying it on his mobile phone. He's just carrying it around with him, and there's been no leaks. I wonder, is anyone who used to work at News of the World watching this? If so, could you get in touch? Well, I must say they're not doing anything by halves. This is the venue of the grand unveiling, and it is the National Auditorium in Mexico, which is a huge venue. It's actually 10,000 seats. It makes it the size of the Wembley Arena, and it's in Mexico City, which is the biggest single metropolitan authority in the world, I think. There are bigger conurbations, but this is the biggest single city in the world. So it's in the heart of a place of enormous prestige. The hiring is quite something. It's rather like it's a bit like having it in the Albert Hall if they were doing it over here. I mean, one question I suppose people have asked is, well, why is it going to be in Mexico? Why not have it in the United States? Seeing as the Roswell, going back to the Roswell incident was in the United States. The owners of the slides, or the alleged owners of the slides, were Americans. The researchers, Tom Schmidt and Tom Carey, are American. So is Carl Rosin. Jaime Maussan is Mexican, so that's the only thing to link it to Mexico. Here is Jaime himself. But there could be reasons why you want it in Mexico, and one of those could be security. It could be that, in fact, I think it's almost impossible otherwise, that Tom and Don are very well aware of the issues that I have raised regarding security. I imagine that they're very concerned about the safety of the Roswell slides, and they're very, very worried that somebody, presumably, in fact, it's almost certain, if you consider there are people keeping the secret of aliens, somebody will almost certainly want those slides not to become public, which means they will try to get hold of them, steal them from the researchers who currently have them in their guardianship. So it's possible that having them in Mexico is slightly better for security. It could be that the CIA, FBI, whatever, the various intelligence organizations would have a harder time of it dealing with this issue in Mexico than they would if it was in the continental United States. So that could be a reason why they've done it. Anyway, if you want to go there, you can buy tickets. They are. I looked at them. It's apparently it's like $400 or $500 for a seat, even in the back row. It's like $1,500 in the front row. But that's Mexican dollars, and Mexican dollars are about each Mexican dollar is only worth about, I think, 5 pence. So it's not as big as it sounds. But I won't be able to go there unless someone can smuggle me. But I am watching on a live stream, and you can actually watch this. And it's very easy to watch it, and I'll just show you and explain to you how. Now, this here is the website. It's www.bwitness.mx, and this is the website you've got to go to get hold of an ability to watch it online. Because what's going to happen is just like the citizen hearing in 2013, the Be Witness of it's called the Be Witness event. And it's called Be Witness. It's the official event for the changing of history, and so you get the chance to watch history change. It's very, very. It's a bold assertion, but we'll examine whether it's justified again in a minute. Now, you basically go here and you go to this place called Boxcast, and you put in your credit card details. You just buy a ticket essentially to watch the live stream, and the website will then send you your personalized link through which you can actually watch the stream on a viewer on your browser. Let's just hope it works. So it's going to be the 5th of May. Now the 5th of May is a public holiday in Mexico, apparently. I've just found this out. It's it celebrates a famous battle of some kind. Presumably it's a battle in which Mexico won. Otherwise I don't think they'd celebrate it. I don't think there's a such thing as an Alamo Day in Texas. I don't think, is there? No, probably not. So it's in a big battle. Mexico won it on the 5th of May, so therefore there's a big public holiday there. Anyway, so that's how you get hold of your ticket to watch it. And like I said, as long as the NSA don't shut down the stream, we should be able to watch it all happening. Now, the event is going to start at 5:30 p.m. Mexico City time. All right. Now, if you go to a useful website to go to is timeanddate.com, and go to the world clock. And you go to the world clock. That will sort of like give you an idea of time difference. Now, 5:30 p.m. in Mexico City is actually about 11:30 p.m. where I am, which is in Oxford. So the time difference will depend where you are in the world. Okay, but it's going to be a bit of a late night to me because for me definitely it'll be a late night because kicks off 11:30, but there's there's a preliminary event which will go on for 2 hours or so, and the main thing doesn't kick off till 1:30 in the morning, Oxford time, which is 7:30 p.m. Mexico City time. So it's tricky, that, isn't it? So that's the tricky thing, isn't it? But that's life. I mean, this is an international event. They can't have it on a time where it suits everybody because that's impossible. So just stick matchsticks under your eyes, keep some hot coffee on the plate. You'll be all right. Anyway, let's have a look at the trailer for the event, shall we?
Big Witness, el cambio de la historia. Auditorio Nacional, uno de los recintos más importantes del mundo, es seleccionado para presentar Big Witness, un evento histórico que sin duda no te debes perder. Este evento será presentado con tecnología de última generación, 2 pantallas de la más alta resolución, una pantalla de LED de 10 metros de largo por 6 metros de altura, con capacidad de transmitir en Full HD. Cada detalle de ilustración en las diferentes ponencias estarán elaboradas en la más alta calidad. También lo último en tecnología holográfica. Además de traer a la vida a los seres, los veremos caminar en el escenario. Tendremos para ti traducción simultánea para que tú decidas si quieres escuchar el audio original en inglés o bien colocarte una diadema que te hará llegar la señal totalmente nítida en español. No perderás ningún detalle. El streaming lo podrás disfrutar desde la comodidad de tu hogar, contratando el evento en www.bigwitness.mx. Hemos dispuesto para ti 8 cámaras de alta definición. Así tendremos todos los detalles de la conferencia desde todos los ángulos posibles. Un Steadicam que nos dejará ver la intimidad del escenario. Recuerda que este próximo 5 de mayo tienes una cita con la historia en el Auditorio Nacional de la Ciudad de México. Big Witness, sé testigo.
Well, well, well. To me, that was like the Olympics opening ceremony. That's what it looked like. I mean, blimey, they got like good old Jaime Maussan sitting there with his standing there on stage with these holographic beings walking around past him. It's an average investigation film, that. But anyway, as you can see, it's being endorsed by some very, very big names in the business. I mean, Dr. Edgar Mitchell is going to be there. You see some photos of him. He is going to be there. Dr. Edgar Mitchell, he's one of the most high-profile people to speak out about UFOs. I know he's not somebody everybody trusts. You know, think about Bruce De Palma and everything, but you know, I'm listening to him speak. I'm keen to hear what he has to say, and having him there will no doubt draw attention to the event. Dr. Edgar Mitchell, of course, for those who don't know, is the Apollo astronaut and was the 6th man to walk on the moon. Or, well, we're told he was the 6th man to walk on the moon. Well, you know what I think about all that, don't you? You know what I think about the moon landings. But anyway, he was an Apollo astronaut. He went up into space. He was born and brought up in Roswell, New Mexico, too. So the Roswell incident is close to his heart. So, guys, it's quite amazing, isn't it? Now, another reason it's in Mexico, and this is what Tom and Don said, was that they couldn't get the media interested in America. They approached several newspapers. They approached the TV. They approached CNN. Fox and all that sort of thing, and none of them really wanted to pay much attention to it. So apparently the media in Mexico have been much more accommodating. At least the National Auditorium haven't kicked them out. I mean, presumably there's no talk about it being cancelled because, I mean, they must be preparing by now. They must be actually in there right now setting everything up. So we're all good to go as far as I can see. Anyway, the event will also be used to launch a movie. There's a film called Kodachrome coming out, which is like a documentary which is talking about the slides and everything that goes with them. And we'll just have a quick look at the trailer of that now.
Now, has this been released to the public?
No, not yet.
And the government knows you have this?
I don't know if the government knows.
The military?
I don't know if anyone knows.
As in, you're not scared of them?
Here's what I know so far. Several months ago, I was given a box of 400 color Kodachrome slides that appear to have been taken over a 10-year period starting in the mid-1940s. 2 of the slides show what appears to be a small, thin body with a large head and a glass case. All of the photos are part of a collection that belonged at one point to Hilda Blair Ray and her husband Bernard. There aren't many people still alive who knew Hilda and Bernard, but I have been able to piece a few things together. The Rays had no children. They traveled extensively from their home in Midland, Texas, where Hilda was an attorney and an amateur pilot, and Bernard a geologist working in the oil industry. In 1946, Bernard was the president of the West Texas Geological Society. Mixed in with dozens of vacation shots are several unique color photos from the 1948 National Air Races in Cleveland, Ohio, and the 1948 U.S. Open Golf Tournament in Los Angeles. They captured rare color shots of Sam Snead and even Bing Crosby and Clark Gable. There are also stunning close-up shots of then General Eisenhower on a victory whistle-stop tour following World War II. There are dozens more photos that together paint a picture of a very interesting, well-traveled, and possibly well-connected couple. And then there are these last two photos that just don't seem to fit with the rest of the collection. Now, I'm a sports guy. I cover sports for a living. I'm not making any claims as to what exactly is in these two slides. The story is still coming together, but at this point I can comfortably say that the slides are unaltered originals and that they were taken between 1939 and 1949. The body is exceptionally thin and is between 36 and 48 inches long. The head appears to be larger than its torso and has some very unusual features. I'm starting to show the slides to people, having them examined by experts in photography and forensics and anthropology.
It'd be hard to fake the design of the slide, the stamps, all that other stuff on here. I mean, it'd be really, really hard to fake that or duplicate that if you were trying to.
I even showed them to Neil deGrasse Tyson, who understandably was less than convinced.
So, okay, so maybe it's a real alien that landed. Fine. I don't have a problem with that. Come back later when you got.
Fair enough, Dr. Tyson. And then there's this guy, who was an Army lieutenant at Roswell Air Force Base in July of 1947.
It looks identical, or a good copy. If this is a copy, I just say, if this is a copy, they did pretty good.
And then when you start to do a 3D recreation of the body in the photo, that's when things start to get, well, a little strange. Logic tells me it's probably nothing, but I simply can't shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, it's something.
Well, I must say, I am looking forward to seeing that. I'll certainly get a copy of that movie, and I encourage you, Hapanwo TV viewers, to do the same. As you can see, it does seem to have gone through the proper analysis. The Adam Dew has not made the same mistake, or not a mistake, I said. The evidence being presented to him is different in that respect from the alien autopsy video, although in the radio show, you'll hear a bit more about that in the radio show I'm going to present on this. But showing it to Neil deGrasse Tyson, well, Tyson is a skeptic with a K and a capital S. He speaks at TAM, he's friends with James Randi, all that kind of thing. And he's always going to be a bit what Stanton Friedman calls the noisy negativists. He's going to be one of those. And so, I don't know if there's any point showing that to him. I wonder what he thinks of it, though. I mean, like I said, he's seen this thing that's been carried around on somebody's phone, so I wonder. That's a good question, I guess. Now, the guy, the lieutenant, the army lieutenant, or lieutenant, as the Americans call him, there's a bit of a story behind him, and I'll be talking about that next. Now, this is the man we're talking about, whom you will recognise from the movie trailer you've just seen, and well, his name is Eli Benjamin, and he's the guy who was supposedly a lieutenant in the Roswell Army Air Force, and who saw the bodies, who claims he saw the bodies, and identifies them. He identifies the image in the photo, the slide, as being very similar to what he saw on that day in July of 1947. Now, Eli Benjamin was indeed in the Roswell Army Air Force. His name and photo does appear in the 1947 yearbook for the base. He was in the 509th Heavy Bombardment Group, along with Jesse Marcel and all the others who dealt with it. However, why does Adam Dew describe him as a lieutenant? Because his actual record, his military record, indicates that he was never a commissioned officer. At the time, in fact, in 1947, he was actually a private first class, which is like a junior enlisted man, another rank as we call them in Britain, and he was promoted to corporal that very year. He actually served in the Air Force until 1966, when he retired as a technical sergeant. That's like a senior non-commissioned officer. So that's the question: why is it that Adam Dew refers to him as lieutenant? Does he introduce himself as an officer? It's a tricky one, you see, because is Dew lying? Is Dew making it up? Or has Dew been misled? Either way, the idea that this guy was actually an officer and not a rating sort of lends maybe extra credibility to a story, or maybe is intended to artificially inflate the position that this Eli Benjamin held. It's a tricky one, I don't know. It is possibly misleading for the viewer. That's all I can say. And it may be a complete accident. It may not be intentional. Now, Dr. Kevin Randall has written an interesting article here on his blog, A Different Perspective, and it's called "The Original Roswell Slides Will Not Be in Mexico City." The title tells the theme of the article, and this is an important point. It's true that the actual slides, as I said before, this entire article is centered around two small pieces of film in a cardboard sleeve, which would be put in a slide projector. The actual items in question will not be at the National Auditorium on Tuesday. There could be several reasons why that is. The biggest one is probably security. As I've explained before, it's possible that they're worried that these things might be stolen or destroyed. Maybe not. Maybe that's justified. Maybe not. I'll discuss more about that later. But the issue is that what will be shown on that huge 10-meter by 20 size screen, whatever they've got in their big Olympic opening ceremony thing, are a facsimile, a very, very high quality facsimile of the actual slides. Now, you might, so that's just in a way. Now, Philip Mantle talked about this, and if you listen to my radio show on Monday night, you'll hear Philip Mantle say this himself. He thinks it's not a big issue because the actual data is what counts, and the actual data itself doesn't have to be presented at the ceremony. The ceremony itself is just a kind of like public relations event. It's like a big all bells and whistles, bright colours and lights. It's not a scientific investigation. However, it would be nice to see. It would be nice to see those slides actually at the event, maybe in an armoured box surrounded by security. I'll tell you, why doesn't Dr. Stephen Greer lend us some of his bodyguards to come and look after the slides? They can sort of stand in a circle with their fists raised around this armoured, cased perspex box with the slides inside. Come on, Jeroen. If you're watching, why don't you volunteer to be head of the security detail for the slides? Now, Dr. Randall explains here, this is for him. This is a big deal, and he's got a point. I mean, if we don't see the slides on May the 5th, or when the slides are not publicly available in the public domain for peer review by other scientists, then when will they be? That's the question. We don't know. It's all about, in science, there's peer review. All right. So now what we've had so far is Tom and Don and Jaime and all the others. They've got together and they have basically done some private investigations. They called in experts to verify that these films are real. But in order to really truly verify the films, they have to be available to everybody, for all other experts to look at them. So hopefully at some point after this big bells and whistles and Olympic opening ceremony event at the National Auditorium of Mexico, there will be a time when the slides will be available to be visited by other photographic experts to be verified. So that's what I think is the big problem here. And now, it's not a clincher that the slides are actually not there to be seen at the actual bells and whistles event on Tuesday. Although this is a big deal for Kevin, I think it's not such a big deal for me. But Kevin is actually, he says that he goes on to describe other issues he's had, which he's talked about before, about whether the films are genuine or how they ascertain that the films are genuine. The only thing we know so far about how they ascertain the films are genuine is that we got to take Tom and Don's word for it. They brought in a Kodak expert privately to verify the films. That's all we need. That's all. So that's all they need, and that's all we know so far. Sorry, I'm getting my words mixed up. So, as he says here, the real evidence will not be presented in Mexico City, and the mysterious owner of the slides, who does not live in Arizona, as some suggest, will not be present with the slides. Say what you will, but this simply does not bode well. It's one more disappointed in a series of disappointments, and I do not see a way to recover outside an independent analysis of the slides, which doesn't seem to be in the offing anytime soon. Well, it might be in the offing, Kevin. But it'll have to happen in basically the moment that event happens. That event on Tuesday is not the sort of culmination of anything. It's the starting gun. It's the beginning of the process, not the end. And that, you're right. I mean, it's not in the offing now, but it will have to be in the offing at basically the moment that conference ends. Because the first question everybody's going to ask is, well, can we now see the real slides? You don't have to show them to everyone. You don't have to hand them out to people in the street and pass them around, but you could put them in a laboratory, a situation where they can be analysed independently by other experts. So we'll just have to hope that that happens very soon. If it doesn't happen, if Tom and Don still remain cagey and tell us to take their word for it that their own expert is telling the truth, then unfortunately that'll be a very serious situation, and it'll be detrimental, I think, to the situation. It'll damage their credibility enormously. And we return to Kevin Randle for the next part of this saga, which is his review of an interview on the conspiracy show hosted by Richard Syrett, and you can find that online. All you have to do, if you go to YouTube and just put in conspiracy show Richard Syrett, Don Schmitt, Tom Kerry, you will find this particular interview. And you have to skip forward to the about 1 hour 4 minutes to get to the actual interview, and they're on for about half an hour. So fast forward through the first hour. Now, this is where Tom Carey suggests that the connection between Roswell and the slides is not something that he first suggested. He said that what the people he calls debunkers were the ones who first suggested it. Debunkers in this case mean people like Randall who sort of are doubtful about this. So I think it's unfair to call people like Kevin Randall debunkers, quite frankly. The thing about it is, I think I've explained this in previous videos in the series. The name Roswell slides was inevitable. Okay, even if it's a nickname, it was always going to they always end up going to be called that. It was sort of like the way that Roswell, the word Roswell and the name of Roswell is inevitably connected with all crash retrievals. And I've explained this before, how you have names like the Brazilian Roswell, the Russian Roswell, the Welsh Roswell, etc., etc. And how that tends to be used for any kind of crash retrieval event where some object comes down to the ground, it comes to grief on the Earth's surface, it's secretly salvaged by the government as a cover-up and disinformation, etc. So I don't think anyone really can be blamed that these end up being called the Roswell slides, because you couldn't really stop them being called the Roswell slides. Now, so that's maybe nitpicking a bit on Kevin Randall's part. However, again, the other reason, even more so, I think, to the point, is that the Randall and Tom and Don, Tom Kerry and Don Schmitt, discovered privately, so they say, that the film was definitely from Kodak, and it was produced between 1939 and 1949, which puts it in a perfect. It's the kind of film that would be used in order to take the photos required here, if you were at the Roswell incident of July 1947. It's the film you would use. So some film produced in that period would be used to take those photographs. Now, again, Kevin goes back to the various speculations that have come about as a result of this. The connections between Bernard Ray and Hilda Ray, and the fact that it's possible that the very existence of those names in this equation could be a red herring. And he rightly points out, and even Tom and Don, I think, have said this, that we don't know anything about how Bernard and Hilda Ray are connected to this box of slides, and the alien slides in particular, other than a box of them were found in the attic or the garage. Some say attic, some say garage, of their house in Midland, Texas, when it was being cleaned out in 1988. Now, Hilda, she was a very high-powered lawyer. She was a respected member of the legal profession. She died in 1988, which is when the house was cleared out. Her husband, Bernard, who was a top geologist, he was president of the American Society of Petroleum Geologists. He died in 1982. It's a great shame, actually. I mean, come to think of it, if they had these slides all this time, if they'd taken them in the 1940s and kept them all these years, it's a great shame that the slides didn't come out back then, basically when Jesse met Stan in 1978. They could have come out then, which would have been brilliant, because Jesse Marcel Sr. approached Stanton Friedman and told him all about the Roswell incident. And that is basically how the Roswell incident entered popular culture at that time. It can be traced to that interaction in 1978. Now, if the slides had come out then, it'd have been fantastic. Instead, we have to wait all this time for them to come out, and it's a bit frustrating. We know that they were discovered in the possession of the rays in 1988 by a cleaner at the house, who was the sister of Adam Dew. However, she didn't pass them on to Adam for 10 years. She kept them until 1998, when she passed them on for 10 years, and he didn't sort of like look at them really for another 10 years until 2008. And so there's like this big 20-year hiatus between the slides actually being discovered and them coming to light within the ufological community. Is when Adam Dew is not a ufologist. He was a sports presenter, a sports journalist basically, and photographer. And he just discovered these and thought, well, I better go and find someone who knows about UFOs. So he didn't know anything about UFOs. So he just went on the internet and put in UFOs, and he came up with Don Schmitt and Tom Kerry, and they got involved. But it's an interesting interview, and I think it's a pretty good interview. Richard Syra, he seems to be a good host. He can always have me on his show if he likes. He's very. I'd love to be on his show. But I mean, Kevin says that despite the fact that Kerry says that there's no real connection with Roswell or not, he talks as if it was, and he calls them the Roswell slides himself. Again, I think this is nitpicking slightly on Kevin's part, because again, it's just the pressure of linguistic trends. You can't stop these things being called the Roswell slides. It's inevitably going to be called that. This article goes on to discuss various other things connected. He talks about. I'm not going to go into this, but he talks about this. What's his name? Dwyer, the fireman. Oh God, no, I'm not going to go into that. I think that's connected with all the Philip Corso stuff. So that was interesting. It's interesting I do recommend go to YouTube and look up that interview and have a listen to it and have a watch of it, because it's good that Tom and Don are getting out there. In fact, I'm going to have them on Hapanwo Radio, I think, at the first opportunity I can. So keep looking at the Hapanwo Radio blog. I hope to get those guys on at some point myself. Okay, I'm now going to read you the transcript of an interview which took place on Jaime Maussan's TV show, and I'll be interspersing my own comments. But in order to separate the dialogue from my comments, I'm going to have to imitate the voices of Jaime Maussan and the interviewers. Okay, so there's no offense to Jaime, but I'm going to have to talk like this because this is Jaime Maussan, and I'm going to have to. The male interview is going to talk like this, right? Now, of course, this is all in Spanish. The actual interview itself is in Spanish. It was translated by Scott Corrales. I've spoken to my girlfriend about this, who can speak Spanish. She's translated it independently, and she's assured me it isn't accurate in translation. So here we go then. So I want to tell you that on May the 5th, at the National Auditorium of Mexico, we are going to present these extraordinary images that were accidentally recovered. 2 slides in which the images of a non-human being can be seen. A being which, according to the researchers who have looked into it, analyzed it for dozens of hours, it lacks the least signs of being a child or a mummy. It is an adult being. Oh, just making it sound a bit Welsh there, aren't I? A corpse, right? No, it is a being with a very large head, small extremities, small body, barely 7 ribs on either side, when humans have 10 or more. There are differences that make researchers think this is truly from another planet or another world. This, of course, is based on the evidence that Jaime himself has seen, because Tom and Don have allowed Jaime into the inner circle. Okay, this is nothing that we've seen. This is what they have seen. We don't know specifically that. We don't know specifically that this is true. We only know from the private research of those individuals. The male interview continues. And what have they? And where were they found? These images were found by accident at a home in Sedona, Arizona. Someone lifted a box containing 400 slides. Well, I heard it was Midland, Texas, but never mind. It bottomed out, and these 2 slides were found wrapped up among them. Research began. Many of the slides had the name of the people who took them. Information revealed it was a very important couple in the 1940s who likely granted access to military facilities where they were able to take these photographs. Well, that's the question, though. I mean, if Jaime knows something we don't about Bernard and Hilda Ray, then he needs to tell us, because, like I said, we know a little bit about them. We know they're photographers. We know they traveled a lot. We don't know specifically that they were well connected, except that they were present where many important people were. They went to prestigious events. Bernard Ray, of course, was a top geologist. Hilda Ray was a top lawyer. Oh, excuse me. Oh God, you guys are keeping me up. We know that Hilda was a pilot as well, and she had some connections to the intelligence services, so it's been suggested. So what year are we talking about? Between 1947 and 1949, there are a lot of elements. They have been analyzed by photographic companies. The photos have been found to be genuine. In other words, these are positives rather than negatives. Positives, and they show something that in 1947. So, again, Jaime is talking about the photographic analysis, which has been done privately by Tom and Don. In the 1940s, people didn't have the concept of the large-headed extraterrestrial. It didn't exist at the time. As you know, in the 50s, all movies had monsters and so forth, and things whose nature eluded them. You can see this image here. Well, this is actually not quite true. It's certainly true that the movies came out of Hollywood and in fiction in that time period, 1940, 1950s, they tended to be different to what we know about aliens today. They tended to be monster-like. The grey alien of popular culture didn't really emerge until, say, I think maybe Close Encounters. However, people did see grey aliens back then. There are a couple of fictional references to grey aliens at that time. There's the Mekon from the Eagle comics, for instance, he's green-skinned, but he looks very much like a grey. There are several other greys, and also people did encounter greys. I mean, there's a picture by Aleister Crowley, made in the 19th century, of a creature he called Lamb, which is distinctly a grey alien. There's even pictures of greys on cave walls that were made thousands of years ago. But the greys haven't just arrived. They entered popular culture, I think, after Close Encounters. But the greys have been around before then. I mean, for instance, Robbie Graham, a friend of mine who runs the Silver Screen Sources blog, who's very, very interested in the status of UFOs in the media, he actually contacted the production designer of Close Encounters, and he said, the guy who designed the aliens you see at the end that come out of the mothership, and that great climax of the film. And he said, look, where'd you get the idea for these little grey aliens you have scurrying around everywhere? And where did you think of that? And he said, oh, I got in touch with a couple of people who'd seen them, and we had a conversation, and they described them to me. Which means that the Close Encounters movie, rather than, according to people like Dr. David Clarke, people saw grey aliens in real. They claim encounters with grey aliens because they saw them in Close Encounters. But he's put the cart before the horse here. It's actually Close Encounters. The movie itself is based on what people have seen beforehand, objectively. So I don't think Jaime's point is quite valid here. So how did you come across all this, and how are you going to present it? I was at an excavation in Roswell and spoke to the experts. They told me about this, and it occurred to me to invite Edgar Mitchell, the sixth man on the moon, who lived in Roswell at the time when the spaceship crashed there. So he knows the story and believes it to be authentic. We're talking about the sixth man on the moon here, an astronaut, a legend. He agreed to come. So then I got all the elements together, arrived at the settlement and acquired the exclusive rights to present this for the first time. This event is unique and will not be repeated anywhere again with these characteristics. Furthermore, it will have a 10-meter screen, simultaneous translation for the 10,000 people in the audience. We'll have everything we need. We'll have 8 cameras for live screening that can be followed on the internet. So I think there are many elements. You can see Clark Gable, Mr. Eisenhower, images that were mixed in with the ones showing the beings. The foremost Roswell researchers will be presented. Well, he says, Richard Dolan, a historian, will tell us the importance of all this. It could change history. Well, it's true. I mean, he's referring to the slide box, which contains over 400 slides, which do show unique photographs, colour, high-quality photographs of people like Clark Gable, General Eisenhower, who went on to be president later on. As I say, Bing Crosby, Sammy Sneeze, the golfer. So it shows that the Rays had gone around taking photographs at these events, top-quality colour photographs. The slides of the aliens were not part of the main collection. As I've explained, they were in an envelope, separated from the others, tucked in to the lining of the lid of the box. So this doesn't mean, this doesn't mean they're not connected. It's quite possible that the slides which the Rays took and the slides of the aliens are not part of the same collection. They're not connected. They may not, as I explained, we don't even know if they were taken by Bernard and Hilda Ray. And as for Richard Dolan, I mean, Richard Dolan, Jaime describes him as a historian who's going to tell them the importance of all this and how it could change history. Well, Richard Dolan is going, but I think he's only going to sit in the audience, from what I've gathered. In changing history, might you not get into a fight with these guys? Well, I've been threatened and they've told me not to do it. I'll be destroyed. How do you mean? But who? It's coming from the United States. They're very angry at this to be shown that it's a fiasco, that it isn't true, that it's a hoax. Well, Jaime here is talking about basically people like Kevin Randall, who've been, I wouldn't say he says he's been threatened. Now, Sue, when she translated this, she didn't actually use the word threatened. Her own translation said that, I think the word she used, she did it live over Skype, I can't remember the word she used, but she definitely didn't say threatened. I think what Jaime means is he's been warned. He's been warned by people like Philip Mantle, like Kevin Randall, other people like that. He shouldn't be getting involved with this because it's going to be a big cock up at the end, a ticking time bomb, as it's been described, and it's going to blow up in his face, and he's going to go down with that ship because he's involved. Anyway. Why in the United States is everyone so skeptical? I mean, you've got Area 51 there. Well, that is different from Roswell, but I believe there are many interests at work. I'm not sure who's financing these people, if there's money involved, but they want to destroy the case and keep it from having any significance, because this could be the small crack in the wall. But there's so much to talk about Area 51. The other day, I was watching a documentary and there was a pilot saying, I could see lights that many people see coming out of the sky in that area. The technology of these ships, the technology that surrounds us, a fair share of it comes from Area 51. That's why we've had huge leaps in. I think that there are different elements in each case that give the phenomenon its authenticity. So what do you have to say to those people who don't believe in this? Here's the evidence. It's physical evidence, real evidence. Persons of the highest rank will be at the National Auditorium at Mexico at the Be Witness event. I think it is time for them to attend an event of this magnitude. So I don't know. I'm very proud to have been involved, concerned by those threats. But it won't keep me from doing this. It will be done. And, well, I expect people will support me, will be there. And that this event will become a watershed event in history, not only of the phenomenon, but of the human race. Well, I hope he's right there. But as I said, I mean, I should just say actually a bit later about this because I've changed my mind over this, the significance of this. But I'll say some more in a little while. So, is the Mexican government involved in any of this? No, unfortunately, they leave me alone. At least I've never had any problems. I've never been threatened. I've never been told anything. So the UFO community is now incredibly divided in the United States. Some speak positively, some speak poorly. Exactly. This is going to be a mega event. Oh, well, thanks very much for inviting us. So that's Jaime there. Ever enthusiastic. Now, sometimes he goes over the top, I think, Jaime. He's a good lad, but I'd be interested to know where he got some of his information, like about what he talks about when he says that Bernard and Hilda Ray had access to secret facilities. And I said before, I don't dismiss that they were part of this breakaway civilization. Just because they were quote-unquote civilians doesn't mean that they wouldn't have been involved. They wouldn't have been part of that inner circle. But I don't know. I'd be like I said, I'd be interested to see where Jaime gets his information from. Definitely. But interesting that was. Very interesting. Now, please note that on Monday evening, the day before the Roswell slides are revealed, I will be hosting a special radio program about the Roswell slides. Now, those of you who listen regularly to my weekly radio show, the Hapanwo Show on Hapanwo Radio, will know that I usually broadcast at 8 PM on Tuesday evening. I'm not going to do that this week because the slides are on Tuesday evening. Therefore, it's going to be a day early. It's going to be Monday. That is tomorrow at the time I'm recording. And it's going to be earlier. It's going to be 7 PM, not 8 PM. The reason is that basically it's going to be an extra long show. It's going to be a special extended edition bonus radio show. It could be up to 3 hours long. I have 2 hours of interviews of people. Basically, I've got one with Richard Wright, who is a ufological journalist and activist, founder of Exopolitics Kingston upon Thames. And I've also got an interview with Philip Mantle, who is also a ufological journalist. He's an author, and he's a researcher. And this is going to be very, very interesting. It's going to be everything you want, everything you needed to know about the Roswell slides, but were afraid to ask. So, if you want to listen, please tune in Monday evening, Monday the 4th of May, 7 PM. Link is in the description box to the show notice, and there's show notes there which will tell you everything about it. It'd be great for you to join me. There was a comments box as well. There's a chat box as well attached to the radio station, which means you can talk to me and talk to other Hapanwo Show listeners. It's going to be a great show. I do hope to see you there.
Right then, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and I've had all 4 of those on this comments box, I'll tell you. It's that time of the programme again when I go through all your comments that you left on the last UFO Disclosure 2015 video. And I want to thank each and every one of you for the comments you've left, even the bitchy ones. I'd always appreciate to get feedback of any kind, good or bad. So we'll begin with Beetlejuice. Hello, Beetlejuice. Where all this gold going? It keeps being bought, but where do they put it all? And we only have their word that places like Fort Knox have gold in them. Well, this is interesting. Yeah, it's we know that their word is worth and definitely not gold. Sorry, you've been a bit incoherent, Beetlejuice, but I get your point. You're talking about the gold reserves and about Vladimir Putin, I think. Basically, yeah, I mean, I spoke about this, about how Vladimir Putin is actually hanging on to his gold. Putin, as I said, is not doing what he's told by the New World Order. This doesn't necessarily make him a friend of ours, but it does mean he is the enemy of our enemy. Whether you consider that a friend or not, it depends on your philosophy of war. I don't, but I still respect him, like I said. He's refused to do what the IMF have demanded, which is to sell off his gold at a discount price. Gordon Brown, the Chancellor of the Exchequer in 2002, did agree to sell off his gold at a discount. He sold off half of Britain's gold at a very, very low price, mostly to China. which is insane. It's economic suicide. Or economic terrorism, whichever way you want to look at it. And I think it was obviously it was deliberate. I think because Gordon Brown, like all these government stooges, are put there by the Illuminati to destroy the world, basically. And one of the ways they want to destroy society is economically. They want to break. It's important to understand whenever you see things like bankers' bailouts and things like that. You know, they're talking about a currency crash now, but they want to bring down the world's economy so they can rebuild it in their image. I tell you what, whenever you go to the BBC and they say, "Oh, and now we're going for our World Business Report," I always go, "It's always yawn time. Switch off, all right." At least since the BBC dropped the gorgeous Tanya Beckett. But I tell you what, if you want to know about economics and you want to listen to a really interesting economic news report or business news, watch the Kaiser Report. Watch Max Kaiser and Stacey Herbert on RT. So thanks, Beetlejuice. Patty T. The only way us regular folk will get disclosure complete, brackets, is if the billionaires can put a meter on it so they stay in control. Well, exactly, Patty. And you can't put a meter. I think you're talking about free energy. All right, you can't put a meter on free energy. This is the point. It's like going up to the skipper of a sailing ship and saying to him, "I want to put a meter on your mast with an anemometer attached to it and charge you for the wind you use." That's what it's like. It's economically and financially impossible to charge people for free energy. Gareth McPhail has sent me a link to UFOWatchdog.com and their little entry for Donald Schmitt. And of course he is in the Hall of Shame. Turns ufology in Roswell into a laughingstock as his ego wrote checks to his credibility. His ego wrote checks his credibility couldn't cash. He lied about his education, employment and Roswell research to reporters. He claimed to be a medical illustrator and have a master's degree. He worked for the Postal Service and didn't have a degree at the time. When caught out in a lie, he lied some more. He claimed his former partner Kevin Randall is a government agent. The inability to tell truth from norm seems to be the way in ufology. Well, Gareth, I've done a video which you should watch. It's called Dr. Jonathan Reed at Rendlesham Forest. I think that's what I've titled it. It's my live report on Dr. Jonathan Reed. I do a whole intro to that film and my coverage of Dr. Jonathan Reed's lecture. In that film, when I talk about the UFOWatchdog.com website. Okay, I'm not a fan of that website. I think it is silly, sensationalist, and basically it's a waste of time. Okay, but I go into details there. So thanks for your comment, but I don't agree with your assessment of Don Schmitt, and I don't really think UFO Watchdog is a valuable source to gain an unbiased and rational view of the ufological community. Beardgood. Would be nice if X-Files was back. Well, Beardy, it's coming back. Yeah, they're going to do a new series of X-Files, which is really, really great. Hunley says, looking deeper, there are a few lines of thought, and to be honest, most of them aren't appealing, to say the least. One thought of mine goes along Richard D. Hall's research, which he covered in this video, and Hunley provides a link to Richard D. Hall's discovery of the mutilation phenomenon. Now, animal mutilation, as you know, regular viewers will know about this, about what Linda Moulton Howe discovered, and many others like David Caton, Nigel Freebury, about how cattle and other animals are being found in fields dead with very strange injuries. Well, Homo sapiens is not immune from that long list of species, and there's no reason to think that we would be, because humans, you know, all other animal species are on there. Farm animals, wild animals, pets, even marine mammals are now being found with these mysterious injuries on them. And Honey talks about Springfield Jack, who was a very interesting figure, a strange creature that left footprints in the snow. Yeah, it's quite a lot. I can't read all this out, Honey, but thanks for your comment. But I get your point. I mean, obviously, if the government knows more about UFOs than we do, and it's possible they don't know much more than we do. They may not have the whole story. We assume they know everything and we know nothing. That's not true. It's possible they don't know a lot more than we do. They know they exist. That's the thing. They've got the evidence, forensic evidence, in the form of bodies and crashed craft. That doesn't mean they know a lot about them. But obviously, there are many elements to the UFO phenomenon. Some of them are friendly and nice, like crop circles. Others are more disturbing, like abduction. And probably at the top of the list of disturbing phenomena related to UFO is the mutilation phenomenon. If they come clean with that UFOs exist, people are going to be asking questions about animals that turn up dead with these strange injuries and people that turn up dead with these strange injuries. The government are going to be interested in knowing what the effect will have on our culture and our psychology. This could be one of the reasons they've had disclosure. Interestingly, Timothy Good actually thinks that the truth embargo was justified. I don't agree with him there, but I think Tim's a good guy. I think he's on our side in terms of he's a ufologist, but I don't agree with him there. Prog Force Field. What do you think about the enclosed Earth theory, Ben? I'd like to hear your opinion. Nice one. Thanks, Prog Force. By the enclosed Earth theory, do you mean the hollow Earth theory? Where basically the interior of the Earth is hollow and there's a central sun. That's bullshit. I used to believe in it. It just doesn't make sense. I know some people who do, but not everyone. Yeah, it's as far as I can see, there are large underground chambers. This is where I think people have got confused. There are large underground caverns in the interior of the Earth, much larger than anything we know of, that are both natural and artificial. And I think this is where people who have had experience of being underground and seeing large landscapes get confused. Dilza Filha Casada, I hope I pronounced your name right, I think that's Portuguese, has shared this on Google+. Thank you, Dilza. Paul Armstrong. How much was a pint at that posh gaff in London? I bet it was nearly £5 a pint. And Jack Reaper says, yeah, probably was. Why do you ask? Just out of the loop on a fancy London hotel prices. Paul is talking about the In and Out Club where we had that strange UFO conference with all those posh people there. Paul, it was extremely expensive. I can't remember the actual price, but basically I stopped after a single pint. Yeah. Gareth McPhail, once again, he comments here. There's bound to be blank slides from the 40s in some attic or cellar. If you have a 1940s camera and slide, you could easily fake one. I won't accept photos or videos these days as proof. Years ago maybe, but anything produced these days as original can easily be faked. The only way to convince a skeptic now is to let them see something with their own eyes, and even then some still won't believe. On the last point, Gareth, you're absolutely right. As Stephen Bassett and I have spoken about on our radio show, even in the post-disclosure world, there will be some skeptics who refuse to accept the reality of the extraterrestrial presence. They will not be convinced by anything. Now, what he says here is interesting about the slides. If you have a 1940s camera, you could easily fake one. Right, well, this is a point, we don't know much about these slides, as I've explained, except what Don Phillips, he's a good guy, I like Don Phillips, Don Schmidt and Tom Carey tell us. Alright, and they've said they've had them privately verified through their own independent research. That's not the same as a proper peer-reviewed scientific investigation. But he makes, this is a good point. I mean, I don't think you can't, obviously if the film is genuine 1940s film stock, you can't fake that. Okay, film has a very short shelf life. If you don't take photos and develop it within a certain time period, it becomes useless. If this was film produced and released in 1939 to 1949, it would have had to have been used within a very short time of that period, a very short period of that time. I know I won't accept it without proof either, Gareth. The thing about it is, like I said, we don't know yet. We're just going to have to wait and see. But it's an all or nothing situation. The first question everyone in that audience is going to ask on Tuesday is exactly the question that you've just asked. And Don and Tom and Jaime and Carol and all the others, I mean, their answer is going to have to be very, very, very good indeed. They're going to have... Honestly, this is... yeah. If this is kind of like a make or break situation, they better have a good explanation. Derek Savoury, excellent work, Ben. Keep up the good work. I will, Derek. Thank you very much. Derek is a brilliant Rendlesham Forest researcher, and he's appeared in my video on that subject. The Bill 9999, another good film review, Ben. Well done. Nice to meet you in Nottingham. You too, Bill. Nottingham. He's talking about the Richard D. Hall live event. Richard actually did a live show at the Belgrave Rooms in Nottingham. I went along and Bill was there, so I met Bill. Truther. Keep us up to date, Ben. You're doing a great job. From a close encounter of the first kind survivor. Well, thanks, Truther, and I'd be interested to hear more about your experience. And you know, I'm glad you survived. Ida Oliveira, I think that's another Portuguese woman. She shared this on Google+. Thanks, Ida. Book Hermit. The reason there will never be disclosure is the wild disinformation stories that have been so pervasive and successful. Any who try to bring out the info and force disclosure will have their disinformation held up for public ridicule, while grains of the real truth they've managed to gather will be discredited by association. Yeah, this is a good point. Book Hermit is talking about the various machinations of government intelligence agencies to keep secrets. They will do things like they won't. You don't just cover up; you muddle up. As Andrew Johnson's explained. I've got a book by him. This is it. This book here, 9/11: Finding the Truth, by Andrew Johnson. All right, I do recommend this book because it's a book not just about the 9/11 attacks and how the official story is not true, but it also analyses the various ways with which the secret has been kept since 9/11, not just by suppressing information, but by deliberately putting out false and confusing information. And this is something we've got to be on our guard against. Now, I made a video called The Shill Squad where I warned against people being excessively zealous. I caution you about becoming paranoid. However, this is something we have to be aware of. So, Book Hermit has made a good point here. Steph Newman. Can just imagine any kind of UFO disclosure being buried in the news by the birth of William and Kate's new baby, or by the election. Oh yes, of course, little baby Cambridge Jr. who popped out last night, who looks human but may have some reptilian DNA in there mixed in, we don't know. Oh blimey, I've written an article about that. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting that this has suddenly occurred just a couple of days before the event in Mexico. I wonder, Steph, could you be correct? I wonder, yeah. And we got the election. Of course, that's interesting because the Mexican event, the Be Witness event in Mexico on the 5th of May, is straddled by, on one hand we have little baby coming out, little new princess. On the other, we have the election just after it. So it's quite possible that the Mexico event will be lost in that noise. Well, we have a big long thread here. Sith Lord UK. Now, I can't always read. I've given up, to be honest, hoping for ET disclosure. If people haven't come forward and haven't heard it by now, it's not going to happen. As I said before, we will know they exist. The ETs want us to. Don't get me wrong, guys and gals. I've seen UFOs. Spent a lot of time as a kid on the moors, camping with 0 street lamps for hours, tens of miles, and also seen one fly over the house near me. My daughter saw it for longer than me, but I did get it about 3-second eyeful, so I'm not trolling. Can anyone remember a series called Robotech from the 80s? So it's quite a long comment. But thanks to Sith Lord UK, thank you very much for this comment. He's triggered off a lot. He says here, in my opinion, that kind of scenario happens, or the ETs show up Independence Day style, and I'll give it till the end of the year. If it isn't out by 2016, it ain't going to happen by our means. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, if it's not, it's true. I mean, Sith Lord, like many people, has actually encountered these things himself. I've seen strange things in the sky I can't explain, which don't fit into any known model of normal things up there. And I know things. I know what Chinese lanterns look like. I know what aircraft look like. I know what satellite look like. I'm not a fool, you know. Experienced skywatchers soon, once they've been fooled a few times by, identified flying objects, they soon learn to be careful of things like that. Now, the Independence Day scenario is something that is worth thinking about because, as I said, I think I've said this in previous videos. I mean, can the government actually do disclosure without, you know, by saying, oh, there are ETs, we don't know much about them? Well, the thing about it is, Bryce Zabel said at the 2011 Exopolitics conference, it's possible, if it turns out the ETs are bad guys, then we might have to forgive the governments for keeping it from us and unite with them to defend the planet. Independence Day style, yeah. And I propose the possibility that, if the governments really had to put out disclosure of some kind, is it possible they will tell us the ETs are bad, even if they're not, to dig themselves out of that hole? You know, it's that public relation, that terrible public relations situation, that's an understatement, that they'll find themselves in. Monica Bonds agrees. I put my own comment in there, actually, yeah. We'll see what happens on December 21st, that's right. Oh, Project Black, oh my goodness. Now this is a guy who, Project Black is a bloke who, I don't dislike him, but he always makes videos about me. He makes videos taking a piss out of me. Listen, Bald Blast. When I talk to you, at least you have some respect and talk back. I warned you guys against Miles, yet you ridiculed me. You guys are going to be in for a shock shortly. It's going to make Einstein's theory of relativity look like a primary school paper exam. You better watch CERN and the LHC program that the USA are a part of. Although Israel joined recently, maybe stick their fucking nose in. The reality is, new science is on its way out. Shit, these dickheads could replicate but couldn't explain. It's CERN's job to do exactly that, and the USA have been using technology and physics they don't understand because it doesn't fit with the standard model. So they're rewriting the standard model. Dark matter and even gravity doesn't fit in with the standard model. But when they work it out, it should open interstellar floodgates. Bald Blast. Why is it when people want to insult me, they always call me evil? It's either bald or fat. It's like they're telling me something I don't already know. It's like you're telling me, do you think I have this persona that I'm like Leo Sayer with a big afro haircut and I'm skinny as a rake? Do you really think that? Anyway, I'm not going to reply to what Project Black said about Miles because there's a bit of a backstory to that between me and him. But that's interesting that he does mention the interesting points about how NASA, and in terms of practical purposes, people are using non-standard scientific ideas. And indeed, there's a factory in the north of England that uses Brown's gas. There's a story. Brown's gas is this material that doesn't fit in with, again, doesn't fit in with standard scientific beliefs. It's a strange substance. Scientists say it doesn't exist. They say it's pseudoscience. Yeah, this company uses it and it works. There's a fire station in the United States that uses a water hammer, free energy device to power it. You know, there's a big sort of like grassroots kind of acceptance of a lot of this stuff. It's really amazing. It's like the paranormal, like UFOs. You know, a lot of people know about it. It's just that the authorities won't accept it. This is why folk history and official history are so different, as I explained, I think, in the previous video. Sith Lord. Hey man, if that happens, I'm ready for the new era, hey. I'll be the first to boldly go where no man has gone before. But I doubt the bankers and the world's governments will give up their control on power, man. That's true, yeah. I mean, Sith Lord is right. This is basically, in that sentence, he sort of encapsulated the entire issue I'm discussing in this series of films. As John Hutchison once said, John Hutchison is the investigator who inspired a lot of what's in this book, and the work of Dr. Judy Wood, which this book also discusses. Jesse Ventura, yeah. Do you really think the scientists haven't come out with anything better in the past 100 years than a petrol engine? Yeah, we're still using Victorian technology in modern vehicles. It's like really amazing, isn't it? Well, there's a story about. I mean, that goes back to Nikola Tesla. The whole Industrial Revolution, in a sense, can be sort of like there's an undercurrent to the entire Industrial Revolution, which involves a battle between these two forces. The forces of the conventional energy systems we have and non-ordinary science and engineering, and it involves people like Tesla and many others. And it's yeah, they ain't going to bring it out, man. As soon as the new scientists bring out cold fusion for homes and some other device for free energy, he's found dead or he's paid off, man. That's true, Sith Lord. That's exactly what does happen. And that book discusses it as well. People like Eugene Malov, people like Stanley Meyer, they all end up dead. People like John Searle end up in in a lunatic asylum. You know, this sort of thing's happened. Project Black says, look up the EM drive and keep your eye on the LHC and CERN. Things are going to change soon. The EM drive is this thing NASA's doing, and Project Black is quite right. He's a skinny, hairy bastard, but he does come out with some good points sometimes. Mark Porritt, I love your vids, Ben. Thanks, Mark. Tiberius Kirk, thanks for the update, Ben. Thanks, Tiberius. Tiberius Kirk, actually, is a good friend of mine. I met him a couple of weeks ago in Watford. There'll be a video connected to that which he filmed, so keep a watch out on this channel for that. Tomahawk has sent me a link to a UFO sighting at Rendlesham Forest, so thanks for that. There's a little brief video here of a helicopter and this strange orb going round it. It's like the Foo Fighters from the Second World War. That's very interesting, Toma, much appreciated. Tokyo Fritz, I haven't viewed UFO disclosure material for about 5 years. Dismayed to see it's no further forward. There was a point where things seemed to be progressing, as if the point was reached, but now, after a browse around, I see it's the same old info from years back being recycled and re-released. I still believe, hey, I had a clear day sighting, but I feel no need to monitor developments until it really happens. I'm talking people in the neighbourhood all freaking out about the new ET-related public announcements. Until then, other interests and endeavours will take priority. Right, well, Tokyo Fritz has made a good point, which I have covered too, in the sense that there's been some hubris on the part of the disclosure advocates. It's always, whenever you ask them when's disclosure going to happen, they say, I can't guarantee it. I'm trying not to do Stephen Bassett's voice, but he's the biggest culprit here. But it'll be sometime within the next 3 months, and of course 3 months passes and it doesn't happen. You get to the next 3, and this goes on, and some people are just basically given up. And there's some people like Robbie Graham, who I mentioned earlier, who are questioning this entire mindset. And I partly agree with them. And I mean, I myself am dubious about the whole process. I can't let it go, as I explained, but for emotional reasons. But there's another part of me that says, no, this is just not possible. The political structures of our world don't have the capacity to absorb a revelation of this magnitude. I mean, you know, they go into apoplexy when it turns out that there's an expensive scandal involving some duck pond, some MP's duck pond. I mean, in their garden. It's like, how on earth are they going to cope if somebody important stands up and says, oh, by the way, we're being visited by beings from other worlds? So I know what you mean, Tokyo. I really do. Thanks for the comment. Roel Kranenberg. When are our governments going to tell us? Never, for they lose their power and their income. Do you see? If you do not wake up now, you're never going to. Then we're all doomed. A fairy tale soon. For we must unite it against those whom are in power, and we need to do it ASAP, for our planet is out of balance and we, our children, will not make it. Well, I see what you mean, Roel, and you say I've got to wake up soon. Well, I mean, to be fair, I've actually discussed this very issue in this series of videos. So, I mean, if discussing an issue is not waking up, then I don't know what is. But you're right. I mean, the rest of your issue again encapsulates the point I'm trying to make with these videos. When about whether the governments will ever tell us, and about the effect it will have on their power and income. You're absolutely right. Jack Reaper, Ben, what are your thoughts on the fact that the credit crunch was introduced to steal vast sums of money to construct underground bases off the books? Also, 9/11 was used as a way to cover up the theft of trillions that was disclosed the day before September the 10th, 2001. There could be an asteroid on approach in the next 20 years, and what about that? Well, it's 3 different issues that Jack has raised there. Thanks for your comment, Jack. the credit crunch was indeed used to steal vast sums of money, basically from the people, basically to impoverish the world. Basically, that's the point. As I said before, it's about, in a sense, undermining the financial structure of this planet and our civilization. That's the whole point of these things. That's why the bailout happened. That's why the credit crunch happened, etc. Underground bases off the books. Well, the thing about that's an interesting point. Obviously, with all these funds, they can spend them on all kinds of things, and one of those is we have a black budget. All countries have a black budget where a vast amount of money. Usually, it's over $1 trillion in the U.S. Department of Defense, is used on special access programs, as they're called. It's a euphemistic way of saying top secret stuff that does not have to be approved by Congress. So it's basically classified material. These are used to fund all kinds of projects, and when you take into account the fact that the involvement in the drugs industry, crack cocaine, things like that. Now, people like Frank Willis have talked about this. The government is making a vast amount of money off the crack cocaine drugs cartels from Colombia, and the amount of money being made is so enormous that it could fund something like an extraterrestrial research project at Area 51. It could fund things like the Peasmore base. So the question we're very often asked is, well, where does this secret world government get the money to do what it does? Well, that's your answer. They've got an almost infinite supply of money because they're siphoning it off the people in various different ways, either through illegal taxation or through their drug addiction, or in authorised bank robbery, like the bloody levy in Cyprus, things like that. 9/11 was used to cover up the theft of trillions. Oh, that's right. I don't think 9/11 was specifically done to cover up the trillions that went missing. What he's talking about here is Donald Rumsfeld on the 10th of September 2001 made an announcement that $3.8 trillion was missing from the US Department of Defense coffer. 3.8 trillion. That's an enormous amount of money. £1 trillion is 1,000 billion. In other words, if you put it into scale, if you took £1 million and you shrunk it down to the size of 1 penny, then even on that scale, £1 trillion would be £10,000. That's how big $1 trillion is. 3.8 of those went missing and Rumsfeld announced on the 10th of December 2001. Did he lose his wallet on the bus? It didn't matter because the next day everyone forgot about it. But I don't think that was the actual purpose of 9/11, but it was certainly very convenient for Rumsfeld, wasn't it? There could be an asteroid on an approach. Now he talks about asteroids approaching the Earth. I do a weekly space weather report on Hapanmo Radio, as I've just described, and I do talk about this subject. So best thing I can answer that is just tune into the radio show and you'll hear about it there. Well, I've got a lot here. This is another thread. Light Reader says, in re-edited 4OD there appears to be a pair of doppelgangers next to the fuzzy CIA t-shirt wearer. Oh right, yeah. I'll have another look at that. I think he's talking about me in that ridiculous TV show. Thanks for the comment, Light Reader. Tom Stargazer, what do you honestly think, Ben? That it's secret government aircraft, or we get visited by extraterrestrial life, or a mixture, or both? I just believe that if extraterrestrial life visiting the Earth was rife, we would not have to rely on a government top secret documents and disclosure as we do. If we do get disclosure, it'll be post-living memory or post-2047. Well, in a sense, yeah, there's some people who say, oh, well, I don't need disclosure. I know these things exist because they come and visit me in my bedroom. As for the first question, is it secret government aircraft or extraterrestrials or a mixture or both? It's a mixture or both, I think, Tom. Some things we see in the sky which we can't explain might actually be secret government aviation projects. Others are distinctly not that. If we get disclosure, it'll be post-living memory or post-2047. Well, you ask people like Richard Dolan, they'll say, probably not in the next 5 years, but I don't want to do his voice. Probably not in the next 5 years, but almost certainly in the next 20. If you ask Stephen Bassett, he says almost certainly within the next 3 months. So basically, if you want to start a book on it, and it's a sweepstake, I'll probably go for, if you ask me, if you force me to take one out, I'll say 2021. Okay, and I'll put a £5 on that, and the rest of you can put your money in, and winner takes all. And if you want to offer odds on it, I'd say 5 to 1 on the year 2021. Maybe 17 to 2 on 2025. I think you'd go through it anyway. Where are we here? Okay. Oh, Dazastar. I didn't know you'd done an interview on Rich Plant TV. Just watched it. Brilliant. Thanks, Daz. Yeah, I've done 2 interviews with Richard's show. He's a good guy. I like Richard. Jack Reaper says, hello Heidi, and Heidi's commented again. Heidi's welcome to comment. Like I said, I'm trying to make up with her. Anthony Barrett says, disclosure, I've already had mine. Yeah, so Anthony Barrett is one of these people who has had contact anyway. Anthony Barrett has also said, the cat's brilliant. Why get involved with Channel 4 after the last setup, making the witnesses look like idiots? I agree, Anthony, and I mean, as I explained, I warned Miles against this. I warned Tony Topping against this. I get no satisfaction. I'm not the type to say I told you so, but I bloody well told you so. This is why I refuse to have anything to do with it. Caphorism. Logic dictates that there would be life, green men, sending out their own Voyager probes. It's just down to the maths. Look up and start counting the suns and the stars. Each one must have a planet with life. The numbers are mind-boggling. That's it, Caphorism. I mean, in a sense, we have this image of ourselves being this kind of like little oasis in this infinite desert of cosmic, infinite cosmic desert of just noble gases and carbon compounds and vacuum. Yet, you know, in a sense, there's got to be something else out there, because there's so many permutations when it involves creating life. But look how many stars there are. Look how many planets there are. What about other dimensions and things like that? Anthony Barrett, did you know Rauni Kilda is dead? Yes, I do. Dr. Rauni Kilda, brilliant researcher from Finland who died a few months ago. I played a little tribute song on one of my radio shows for her. So rest in peace, Rauni. Where are? Let me just check. How long am I into this little segment? 34 minutes. Oh, I've got 15 minutes on the battery, 42 minutes film. That's cool. Just checking the battery power on the camera. Anthony Barrett said, Ben, you were at the military event. A goat is well-known mascot. Someone is watching you, Ben. And we have just had the 3rd blood moon of a tetrad. The last one will be on the 28th of December. Watch out for the 23rd, 24th of September. Something is happening by the evil satanic New World Order. Funnily enough, Anthony, someone just mentions some mid to late September as a possibility for something to happen. That's odd, isn't it? Yeah, it's they do go by astrology, things like what you're talking about. Yeah, the event I was I think what you said. The goat is a mascot of that club, the In and Out Club, and there's a little. You go down this little stairway, and there's a thing called the Goat Bar. Yeah, I mean that was really quite remarkable. I've actually just been contacted by the guy who organised that event. He organised the thing with the. He organised the big display there, and he's going to let me know when there are any future ones. So I'll let you keep you posted with that. Ian Bennett, as always, shared on Google. Thanks, Ian. Light Reader, disclosure. Here's a link for you, and he gives me this link to one of his own videos, Ceres, the blue planet with alien cities. Now, I was talking about the planet Ceres, which the New Horizons probe, not New Horizons, the Dawn probe is currently around, and they've discovered like a little point of light on there, like a little glimmer of light. I talked about this in the last video, about whether there's some kind of alien city on Ceres. If so, well, NASA will cover it up, but you're going to see everything go pitch black very soon, because NASA, as I said, will not release information about UFOs or life out there. But thanks, Light Reader, for that. Chrissy Morley shared. Thanks very much, Chrissy. Caphorism said Jezebel, some kind of feminist rag. That was that Hillary Clinton thing, yeah. Oh, yeah. Hillary Clinton will be the next US president, and whether she's the disclosure president or not, Steve's very happy about it because she was involved in this Rockefeller initiative. As you know, I'm a bit more dubious about these things than Steve is. Still recording, isn't it? Yeah. Gareth McPhail. Hi Ben, do you remember the claim by the person who said he worked at Area 51 with an alien called J-Rod? He mentioned a yellow cube that people see into the future, and he claimed that Hillary, that she had seen she would be president back then, among other things. It reminds me of Lazar mentioned element 115 and gave them the world knowledge of Area 51. It seems that time will tell if people's claims are real. Well, the guy Gareth is talking about, Area 51, is Bill Uhouse. Originally he was anonymous, but then he went public, like Bob Lazar did. It's a very interesting story. Again, though, I don't know if it's true. You can't verify these claims or not. That's the problem. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for all your comments. That's all the comments now on that video. There will be, obviously, any comments you make on this video, I will answer in the next instalment of my series, UFO Disclosure 2015. So, there's nothing to do now except wait. Wait and hope. To hope that what happens on Tuesday is a thrill and not a chill. As I said before, this is kind of an all or nothing situation. The organisers of this event and the people on the inner circle to do with the Roswell slides have played their cards very close to their chests. They've been quite restrained in some cases when critics like Kevin Randall and Philip Mantle have come out and said what they've said. This could mean a kind of, hey, just wait until the 5th of May, guys, then we get the chance to prove you wrong. Or it could be a, oh my God, how on earth are we going to explain to these people how we've cocked up in front of thousands of people on the internet and thousands of people in the National Auditorium of Mexico? Oh my God! So, it could be either one of those things. We don't know, and this is the thing, there's nothing to do. We have to accept that we don't know and just wait, because there's so little information available right now. But all I can say is that those guys are going to have a very good explanation on Friday, on Tuesday about what goes on. They're going to have to explain exactly what's been happening all these months and exactly how they came to the conclusion that these are real slides of an alien. I'm not going to use that long oft skeptic quote, extraordinary claims require extraordinary explanations. Alright, I'm not going to, well, I just used it, but that's actually true. Really, I don't use it in the same way the skeptics do, but the thing is, these extraordinary claims do require extraordinary explanations. And whether they like it or not, Tom and Don and Adam Dew and all the others are going to have to take these slides out from their little vault and put them in a situation where they can be examined scientifically by everybody. If they don't do that, then we have to assume they're hiding something. And to hell with security. I mean, the thing about it is, you can't just say we're not going to present scientific data to you for the purposes of security. And is the call for security even a just one? And that brings us on to another subject which I've been saving to the end, but it's a biggie. This is the clincher for me, okay? I've changed my mind about this, and I've changed my mind since the last time I made this film in this series at the beginning of April. Everything up till now, up until a few weeks ago, my whole thought processes about the Roswell slides were, are they real or not? And I've been sort of buying into the hype. The slogans that the Be Witness event uses, like be witness to the change of, it's called the change of history. That's what they call it. Be there at this one-off event to witness the change of history. But what we're talking about here is a pair of photographs. We're talking about 2 photographic prints that have been adapted into slides. And this is the thing. I mean, I've been going on and on about, are they real, are they not? Maybe they're real. What if they're real? Then that's cool. That's brilliant. We'll witness a change of history. It'll be the trigger point for disclosure. Now, I hadn't been listening because, I mean, Steve Bassett brought this up in the radio interview. Will it? We're talking about 2 photographs here. What I'm saying is, okay, if, you know, Kevin Randall, the other guys will say it's a ticking time bomb, it's going to blow up in their faces because they're going to present these photographs and the photographs aren't going to be real. That's one That's one concern of mine. But the thing is, even if we get over that, alright, there's another concern. Supposing Kevin Randall and all the others are wrong, and Philip Mantle and all the others are wrong, or Philip, you'll hear in the radio show that Philip kind of takes an open mind on this. But supposing all the detractors are wrong, okay, and Tom and Don present these photos at the event, the scientific community say, well, let's see them then. And Don and Tom say, here they are, come and examine them. Repeat the experiments we did. They've ascertained that they were real slides from the 1940s, okay? So they examine the film, they examine the codes on the bracket holes, they examine the emulsion, and they examine the rest of the film forensically, and they discover, yes, this is film from 1939 to 1949, released by Kodak, officially acknowledged. It's still just a photograph of something that looks like an alien. The question is, where do you go from there? Okay, supposing, okay, we have a photograph of something that looks like an alien. Right. What next? We don't have a real alien to compare it to, as Philip Mantle quite correctly points out. We just have something that looks like an alien. This may mean it's a real alien, and I would personally vouch that it was a real alien, but how can we prove it? That's the problem. I mean, the keepers of the secret of Roswell, if you think that Roswell was an extraterrestrial event, and I think it probably was, they're going to be. I've been saying in previous films that Tom and Don need to be concerned about the security in case the NSA break in and steal these slides or destroy them. But what if the NSA don't give a damn? What if these people in government, these keepers of the secret, the breakaway civilization, as Richard Dolan calls them, the keepers of the truth embargo, as Steve Bassett calls them, whatever you call them, supposing they're just sitting back right now thinking, I'll let them show the damn slides. We didn't know they got out, but come on. We had no idea these slides got slipped through our fingers, but so what? It's a small leak. They've got no other dirt on us. And that's true. There's no documents that can be used to vouch the slides. We have Lieutenant Benjamin or Private Benjamin. That was a TV series, wasn't it? Private Benjamin, yeah. Or Private Benjamin or Corporal Benjamin or Sergeant Benjamin, whoever he is, okay? We have his word that he says they look like the aliens he saw, which he saw, what's almost 70 years ago. We have no DNA evidence. We have no documents. We have no other forensic evidence. We have no autopsy reports. We have no crash retrieval reports. We have nothing else to back it up with. It's just a photograph of something that looks like an alien. Yeah, it's a real photograph, but it might be of a real alien. It probably is of a real alien, but the government's still in a position where they can still sit back and go, we don't know anything about this. We don't know what this is. That's the problem. A photograph of a real alien is interesting, it's incredible, and it will probably ignite interest in the subject, but it's still just a photograph of an alien, and it in itself is not this change of history. Now, I don't want to sound defeatist, all right? I don't want to pour cold water on this party, but this is something that has occurred to me, and I need to share it with you. I'm not as optimistic as I was. I haven't gone back on my idea that these photos might be genuine. I'm just thinking, well, if they are genuine, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is a clincher. This is not necessarily the trigger point of disclosure. Now, as I said, I don't want to I don't want to piss on the fire. Okay, this could still be significant. What we can only hope, all we can hope for, is that the release of the slides has some kind of effect which dislodges more. It shakes more out of the tree. You get more and more coming out of the tree, and you get a chain reaction, eventually an avalanche, which turns into disclosure. That's all we can hope for. Okay, we can only hope that the presence of these slides at this auditorium will maybe encourage more witnesses to come forward. It might trigger the release of documents, something like that. But the release of the Roswell slides in themselves is not a disclosure event. It could be a trigger to a disclosure event, but it in itself is not a disclosure event. And we have to be realistic about that. There's no way around it. So again, wait and see. That's all we can do is wait and see. I'm biting my nails here, man. I mean, as I'm sitting recording this, it is it's about 36 hours until the event kicks off in Mexico City. It'll be 11:30 p.m. my time over here, so I'll have to, get some hot coffee on the plate, stick matchsticks under my eyes, drink some of that whiskey, of course. But it's about 36 hours time from the time I'm recording this, which means we're getting close, and I feel very excited. In fact, I am on the edge of my seat. But something unexpected might come to the head, which I've not predicted, and no one else has predicted. So this could be it could be more significant than we even realise. And who knows? Maybe that whiskey will actually be a chaser to my disclosure champagne. Who knows? I hope so. I think not, but I hope so. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching Apanwo TV, and I do please, if you can, get on that live stream. It's pretty cheap. It's only in terms of pound sterling, it's about £6 or £7. So it's the price of a couple of pints of lager. You get onto the live stream and you get to watch it live online from Mexico City. Depending on where you are in the world, I hope it's not too antisocial. It's the unsocial hours for you. If it's the middle of the night, well, just set your alarm, or early morning, set your alarm. People got up to watch the World Cup in Japan. I remember a few years ago. So if you can get up at 5 in the morning to watch England versus Argentina in Seoul, Korea, then you can get up at that same time, I think, to watch an alien thing being unveiled. I like football, but personally, I think the latter is more exciting. So I think the next instalment I do in this series of films, UFO Disclosure 2015, will be after the slides are unveiled. So I will be telling you a little bit more then. I'll be giving you a little bit of a review. I'm also going to write a review in the UFO Truth magazine column I do. So do get UFO Truth magazine if you get the chance. Right then, ladies and gentlemen, I shall proceed to the battlefield to let the duel commence. 36 hours and counting. Next time I speak to you, I'll have seen those slides, hopefully. Thanks for watching Apanwo TV. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, stop the New World Order.